Hey everybody, Rix here. What I got is the top plastic lid to a storage bucket thingy, whatever you call it. You get it like at Walmart. It runs you, $8-10. These days about $10. Everything's going up. But I got a comment on one of my videos was asking, hey, can I do a transfer using acrylic paint? In other words, instead of using gel medium or a glue, use paint. Okay, the answer to that question is yes, you can, because when the paint dries, it will act sort of like a glue and it will hold on to the paper. So yeah, you can do it. The question I have is, why would you want to do that? Because you could just as easily paint your surface with whatever the acrylic paint is. This thing's going out of focus. What is with this thing? You could easily just paint your surface, as I said, whatever color you're doing, let it dry, and then use your glue to make the transfer. But hey, since it is a question, and I thought, all right, I'll make this video to answer it, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Okay, so I just got some white acrylic paint, and I figured, well, this is a good time to demonstrate that when you do a transfer, for example, onto a dark surface, everywhere in your image that's white is really not part of the image. In other words, it's where there is no toner on the paper. Let me show you. So here I have printed this out on my quick transfer paper, and you can take a look at it here. You can see it's got some nice little colors. It says art supplies. It's mirrored, so if I bring it up, you should be able to see through the paper. It says art supplies, because when you glue it down, of course, to transfer it, then everything flips. So you want to make sure you print it mirrored. But you see it's got really pretty colors and stuff, but most of it is white. You see that? And this is not a color. This is actually mostly the paper itself. And anywhere that you see paper white, well, the background of whatever you're going to transfer to is going to replace that white. So the letters here won't even show up, because you're going to end up with black on black, and then all this is going to be black because there's nothing here to transfer. This is just the paper color. It's just a little bit off. You can see there's a slight shade difference, but most of this is going to show right through that, and it's just going to look horrible. The way you get around that, of course, is you've got to change the background color that you're transferring to. So in this case, this plastic bucket is going to hold my art supplies. We're on a move, so we're going to have to move a bunch of my supplies to the new shop. And I'm going to go ahead and label this with this nice little transfer here. And this is a good time for me to show you how to do this, because in this case, what I normally would do is I would paint the area white, and then once it's a solid white, then I would go ahead and just use gel medium and glue it on. However, the user asked, could we just transfer with the acrylic paint itself? And that's what we're going to do. All right, with all that yabbering out of the way, I need a nice solid flat area. There's some emboss here and here, and there's a hole here. So I'm going to have to do it this way here. I'm going to put it this like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out my image. Okay, now one of the problems that I'm going to have is that this paint isn't really going to stick to this plastic. It'll peel right off, or flake, or whatever the case may be. So what you have to do is, after you've cleaned it nice with alcohol and everything, you need to prepare this surface to take this acrylic paint. And the usual way to do that is to primer it. Now, I happen to have some of this flat gray primer that I found in the garage. A white one would be better since we're using an acrylic white, so it just kind of makes it, you know, less coats to make it solid white. But at least the gray isn't going to be as dark as the black, so it's a little bonus there. Now, I've cut out this template here, and then that is going to allow me to just primer and paint the area that I want this image. And as you can see, that I actually cut it out a little bit bigger than the actual image itself. And the reason for that is so that I can overlap a little bit with this tape, and that way nothing gets underneath my template when I lay down the paint. Okay, and so we're going to make sure that we overlap that so no paint gets underneath there. Then I'm going to put this back on again to see how much room we have. Looks like oh, this is the wrong one. Okay, we're going to put this in here like so. Let's see, which way is it going to go? Art supplies this way. Okay, so I'm going to put this in here like so. That way, let's see, to simplify this, let's see, maybe I can do this like this. Yeah, this looks like a good idea. Like this. Mark off where this image is going to go. There we go. And now I can use the tape and just mark off. There we go. And here. Okay, and I'm going to put this down like so. Put some tape here on the sides just to keep things from moving around. Yeah, that should be plenty. Okay, so I've got that all nice and masked off, all clean with alcohol and everything. And now I'm going to go ahead and spray it with this flat primer. I don't want to do it inside my office. There's not that great of ventilation, so I'm going to go outside and do this, and then I'll be right back. I sprayed the primer outside in here, and this is so necessary because primer will provide a bonding surface for this acrylic paint because it's not going to bond to this plastic. And again, I'm just going to use my Hippie Crafter heat gun here to speed the process up. And in case you're wondering where you can get this, there's a description down, the link down in the description box area, but here's what it looks like. Got a cool box, you know, this Hippie thing. You know, it's funny is I grew up during that time, so it's interesting that somebody would still be referring to Hippie. But yeah, you know, the interesting that if you put it on the one line here, this is 100-degree temperature, okay? But if you put it on 2, then it's 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I'm going to keep it at 1 because this is plastic and I don't want to burn it. And another thing that's really nice about this heat gun is that a standard heat gun like the kind you have in your garage was so hot that you'll melt everything unless you keep it far away. This one's pretty cool in that it's just hot enough to get things done in your crafting room, but you're not going to set the place on fire. So that's really good. Unless you go to setting 2. Go to setting 2, you put your life in your hands, boy. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. All right. There we go. This is really cool. Okay. All right. So I have a nice surface now to do my acrylic paint. Now I'm going to want to put a few layers of this because acrylic paint doesn't seem to cover dark areas very well if it's white acrylic. So we'll start with the white here, the first coat. And I can see, you can see through it. So I know we're going to have to do more than one coat, including the coat we're going to use as the glue, because that's the whole purpose of this video, is to answer the question, can I use acrylic paint instead of gel medium to do the transfer? And my answer is yes, you can, because when this glues, or when this dries, it will act as a glue. The paper will stick to it. So that's how you would answer that question for anything that you're wondering. Will this work to do transfers? Will this work to do transfers? Well, test it on the surface that you're doing, whatever the adhesive is, and just glue regular paper. If you can glue regular paper where it doesn't come off, you can't tear it off or peel it off, it will work. So there's layer number one. Let's dry it. I got this running at 100 degrees, so it's not too hot, but it'll be just enough to get this dry, and then we'll put another layer on. Alright, let's do another coat. You can see that that's not really solid yet. You can still see the dark behind there. See that? That ain't good. So you want to keep painting it until you get solid white. Otherwise you're going to have the white areas of your image transfer is going to be that instead of white, and that's not going to be good. So, and again, I don't recommend this approach. What I would do instead is I would spray paint it white. Put your primer. Primer is always a good idea on a plastic surface, but I would spray paint this white as opposed to using acrylic paint. Again, I'm using acrylic paint because somebody asked me if you could use it to do the transfer, and that's the only reason, but I just don't see it as being the best way to go. But everybody has their way they want to do it. That's fine. Let's dry this and see if we have enough opaqueness. And let's add some more white paint. This is going to be the last coat I'm going to do, because we still got to put one coat on to act as the glue itself. So this should be plenty as far as, making it opaque, nice and white. And definitely use a template like I'm doing, unless you want to get terrible edges. Masking it off like this is excellent. And I'm going to try to minimize the amount of lines I have here for this. That looks pretty good. Alright. Alright, so let me dry that, and then we'll put on the coat that's going to be the actual adhesive. Alright. Now, this is the part that answers the question, can we use acrylic paint instead of gel medium? And we're going to see whether we can do that, which I know we can. I still prefer to use gel medium. Apparently I had the lid open there. I still prefer to use the gel medium on here, but we won't. We will use this as our glue, the paint itself. Alright, so make sure it's thoroughly wet before you put the image on it. Otherwise, any area that is dry will not glue the paper down and will not transfer, okay? So make sure the whole area is nice and wet with your paint. It just has to be nice and wet. It doesn't have to be, oozing all over the place. That's not that good. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this right on there. Make sure I get it centered in the right spot. Okay, and there we go. We're gluing it down with paint. Now normally I would like to use my brayer for this, but I don't want any paint on my brayer, so I'm going to take my brayer and I'm going to use, let's see, this sheet of paper here, and do it like this. Okay, I would have gotten that on my brayer, and I don't want that. And let's see, make sure that I don't put paint on the back of my paper. Okay. So, I think I've got good contact, about as good as I'm going to get, and I'm not going to put my brayer right directly on it. So, go around and make sure you don't have any air bubbles with your finger. Okay, once this paint sets up, the gluing is over with, and you'll be too late to do any other changes. And then, of course, to speed it up, I'm going to use my Hippie Crafter heat gun and just kind of feel around for it. Speed up this process here. Okay, I think it's dry. Now, if you're not sure, you could just leave it alone, come back to it an hour or two later. I mean, if you're not in a hurry, you don't want to risk it. All right, I'm going to assume that's ready. So let me soak my brush so I could reuse it. And got me a nice clean brush here. I'm going to put it in some nice clean water. That gave it a couple of more minutes to dry, if it's not already. Now let's see how this thing worked out. Okay, we're going to wet the back of the paper, let it soak in. Of course, you know, the only other concern, don't overdo it with the water, because the acrylic paint is probably washes off with water as well, and there goes our glue, right? Okay, and I'm going to put a clean paper towel here to soak up the rest. Let's see if we can get a transfer going here. All right. Gonna have to do a few more peels here. But it looks like that was successful. Let's get that one up and that one up. Well, there we go. All right. So notice we were able to transfer using just the acrylic paint as our glue. And now we're going to remove the template carefully so we don't peel up any edges or anything. And there we go. If we did it right, we won't get too much off the edge there. And there it is. Our supply is on a plastic cover, because we were able to use primer. And then if you want to seal it, of course, you can go and you can take your Mod Podge. Let's see, regular matte Mod Podge sounds like a good thing. Or we can use the glossy. Oh boy, these are always so hard to open. Oh man. Oh, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Oh, there we go. All right. And then just dip it in there like so. This is the glossy Mod Podge. You can use that as a sealant. Now, I probably shouldn't have peeled the paper off just yet, my template, before coating it, but I wanted you to see it and I didn't think about it. That's the real reason, I just didn't think about it. But I'll try not to be too messy. Okay. Soak the brush so I can reuse it. And then clean up on aisle 4. There we go. Okay. And that looks good. And again, use my Hippie Crafter heat gun and seal it. All right, I'll let it dry the rest on its own. Well, there you go, guys. All right, signed, sealed, delivered. There it is. So I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back onto the. Let's see, make sure the back was okay. Yeah, it's all right. I'm going to put this back on the container that has my art supplies, and wow, it's the fanciest container I have right now. So yes, can you use acrylic paint as your glue? As you can see, yes, you can. Do I recommend it? No, I don't. Use the acrylic paint for your background if you want, but when it's all ready, use gel medium or some kind of white glue or something to glue it down. You're guaranteed a stronger bond because this is not a glue, it's a paint. But when it dries, it was strong enough to allow the release of the image from the paper. But you will get a better quality transfer if you use like Liquid-X gel medium. Just paint your background white or whatever, depending on what you want to show through the white part of your image, and you're good to go. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this experimental video. If yes, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and click the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.